everyone, and welcome to She Rides, the podcast where women's cycling takes the lead. I'm Saar.
And I'm Kristof, and today we're diving into the latest race results and hot topics in women's cycling.
And we have a guest joining us to share her story. Let's get started. Ready? Hello everyone and welcome to episode 13 of She Rides. After an episode with just the two of us, we have a guest again with us. Hi Saif.
Hi Sarah.
Maybe before we start, can you maybe introduce yourself to our listeners first?
Yeah, of course. I'm Sadhbh O'Shea. I'm press officer at Liv Alula Jayco. I've been in that role for a year, and before that I was a cycling journalist, kind of focusing on women's cycling for far too long to want to remember.
Okay, so maybe we will start it. How did you get into cycling media? Was it like something you planned to do, or did it came unexpected?
For a long time I wanted to be a writer or a journalist. So I actually studied sports journalism at university. And then, I think it was sort of natural to end up in cycling because, I come from a family of cyclists. I was always watching it when I was a kid. I remember, before my exams, instead of studying, watching the Tour de France. I applied for lots of different jobs, one of the ones I was most excited about was getting a job in cycling. And so after applying for I don't know how many jobs, Pro Cycling magazine gave me a chance. I was so happy. Cycling has kind of been a big part of my life, kind of throughout my whole life. So I think it's perfect to be able to actually work in it.
That's nice. You landed the dream jobs, actually, like combining your
Pretty
studies
much,
with your passion, with your interest.
I couldn't imagine being able to do it any better, really. I get to write all the time. I get to watch bike races. I get paid to watch bike races, and I get to go to them as well. So I think, I wouldn't really want to do any other kind of career. I think I wouldn't go back and change a thing.
Yeah, definitely. And then you've worked for different media, actually. You've worked for a magazine, so you started at the magazine. Then you even worked for Eurosport. Now you're with a team, men's and women's team. So how do those roles actually compare? What are the biggest differences in approach? And then which one did you like the most? I'm pretty sure you have to say the current role, but we're just asking.
I mean, maybe to start off with the end question, I don't really like any of them more than the others. Like, I think they all give kind of different things. So, there are aspects of what I do now. Like, for instance, like I love the fact that I get to travel with people again and kind of working in that really team sort of environment. And then previously, I used to get to write almost anything that I wanted and focus on lots of different stories and stuff like that. So each of them have kind of got their own elements that are a bit different, but that I love. So I wouldn't say that I enjoy any of them more so than the others. I guess I working in a magazine is a very different kind of pace to any of the other environments, because the magazine that I worked on, Pro Cycling magazine, was once a month. So you kind of have these peaks and troughs. It's a bit like being on a roller coaster. You kind of have the super busy period just as you're getting ready to publish, and then it all kind of comes crashing down straight afterwards. And it kind of goes a bit like that, and you have to be a bit more, maybe come at things from a slightly different angle to how you might do for a website or when you're working with a team, because people have bought the magazine already. You can kind of afford to take that sort of different approach. You don't have to try and like grab them in the same way. Whereas with working on the website, working on cycling news and velo news as well, and to a certain extent writing for the Eurosport website, you have to, it's a much more fast-paced environment, and you're constantly writing things like sometimes 2 or 3 stories in a day. I think when I left Velo News, I worked there for 3 years, and I calculated that I'd done, I think it was over 2,000 stories or something stupid.
Oh.
Like, because you're just writing all of the time, and you maybe have a little bit less time to sit and think about things. You're trying to get it out more quickly, but then that means you can kind of dip into like lots more topics because you're kind of going through so many more things. And you know, there was a difference between even like working on cycling news, which was a lot more international compared to working for Velo News, which was a lot more American focused. We still did international stuff, but there was a big kind of focus on kind of writing about the Americans and looking at them. And then working for a team is completely different again, because you're focused on that one thing, that one, well, 4 teams that we have, but and you're trying to find the kind of the stories and stuff in that, but then you also have a very different relationship with the riders. We're paid to a certain extent protect the riders, but also be a pain in the bum to the riders and make them do things when sometimes they don't necessarily want to do them. It is quite different. Each of them kind of have these different aspects and different ways of that you have to do things, which is why it's been quite nice to try them all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do you, to a certain extent, maybe miss the in-depth stories like you could have with a monthly magazine? Then you can go into details, then you have time for research. I can imagine with a team or on a website, it's like quick, and it might interrupt with, well, not to say the quality, but with the content might be like not so deep and not so interesting is not the right word, but you know, it's like fast, news. So is there anything you prefer, or do you like both styles actually?
I like both styles. I do enjoy getting kind of into the bones of a story, and I did get to do that while working for Velo News a fair bit. We still had to write kind of mostly daily stuff, but we weren't writing as much as maybe I did for cycling news. So you've got more time in the day to kind of spend on some longer term stuff, generally in the off season when there's not so much racing to look after. But I did I think one of the stories that I was most proud of doing was one on kind of the cycling industry and the environment. And I did 4 stories on it, and I got to speak to tons of people. I think in the end, it must have taken me like 4 or 5 months to put everything together. And so, yeah, you don't have so much time to do that when you're working for a website. So I only got a few opportunities to do that. But I do miss having the chance to do things that take longer to do. But at the same time, well, yeah, not every job can have every single element of the thing that you want to do. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be things that you lose out on. So you get some really great things in another job, but you have to lose some great things from the previous job. So I miss it, but not so much that I regret any decision that I made.
Yeah, it's the reason you get paid anyway, to do stuff you cannot do usually.
Yeah,
that's true. So and today you almost like a year ago you ended up with Liv Alula. Well, how did you get involved with the team? How did you get on board? And then what is your exact role at Liv Alula today? Actually, that because it can span a variety of jobs in the cycling world, or it can be very focused on something. So it's always what exactly are you covering for Jayco?
So, well, in terms of getting involved with the team, I got to know many members of the team, particularly obviously the media team, through my previous jobs, and they were looking for an additional press officer because they were they obviously got a new women's development team last year. They were putting a lot more focus in on making sure that all of the teams got an equal amount of support, and so they needed another person to help out. And so they reached out to me and asked me if I might be interested. I then went to the final couple of stages of the Welter not last year, the year before, and kind of met up with them and kind of chatted through everything, and we sort of felt each other out, basically, whether they wanted me and I wanted to change jobs. And yeah, it was just after going to Canada for the 2 Canadian races, so I was heavily jet lagged at the time. But yeah, so they reached out to me, and yeah, they wanted me and I wanted to move, so it was perfect. And yeah, so I work, technically my job is with Green Edge Cycling, which is like the umbrella company for the whole team. And I work across both men's and women's teams, so Jayco Alula and Liv Alula Jayco. But generally I do spend quite a bit of time with the women's team. Yeah, the job sort of encompasses all manner of things, from like my job as a press officer. So I arrange interviews with the media when they message me. I go to races and make sure that we get like social media coverage, facilitate interviews there, kind of field any questions that journalists might have. When I'm at home, we watch the races that we're not at, make sure there's social media coverage of those, write race reports when we need to. We write articles for the team website. Myself and my colleague Jeffrey write most of the articles, like the feature articles for the team website. We do race previews. Yeah, there's like so many different kind of spinning plates. I've had to, I'm not normally like a diary sort of person, but in the last year I've got color-coded calendar, so I know what's happening when, because there's just so many different little bits that you kind of have to keep abreast of and try not to drop any of the plates.
And after all this, what's the color code for sleeping, or don't you have any color code for that?
No, that one's just blank.
Okay.
Sometimes that happens, yeah, any given moment.
Okay. And actually, now you told us you're working both for the men's and the women's team. What's the main difference between working for the men's team and the women's team? Are there any differences?
There's not too many differences. The stuff that we do is exactly the same. We do the same social media content. We have 2 videographers on the team so that we can give both men's and women's teams the same kind of video coverage that we do. I mean, for me personally, the main difference is that with the women, it's easier to go on the bus and things like that, and it's a bit easier to move around. With the men, I have to be a bit more careful. It's the same with the male staff going the other way. But kind of ultimately, yeah, there's not too many differences. Maybe some of the men's races are a bit bigger, but there's so many big women's races now that it's that kind of gap is between kind of the size of the races is shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
That brings us neatly to the next topic, right, Saar?
How do you think women's cycling evolved in the last years, and what do you think still needs improvement in women's cycling?
I mean, it's changed like so much since when I first started. It's basically unrecognizable from when I first started back in 2012, when all you got was coverage of the World Championships, and then if it was an Olympic year, you got some coverage of the Olympics, but that was basically it. I remember one of the only ways of getting coverage was following it on Twitter and stuff like that. I don't even know how they used to do it before Twitter, because it would have been almost impossible. But yeah, like following mechanics or soigneurs who were like posting social media updates on Twitter. That was like the only way of following it. And now there's so many races that you can get on the television, or at least they've got a feed on Facebook, or like YouTube or something like that. Like it's so much easier to access coverage of women's races and actually see it, which I think has been a huge part in helping the sport develop. Obviously, yeah, when I first started as well, there was no such thing as minimum wage for the women's peloton. I remember interviewing the UCI president, Brian Cookson, on the side of the road in Paris after the course. It was the year that Chloe Hosking won, and they didn't have like a time frame yet on when they were going to give women minimum wage, and they were terrified that if they did, the whole sport would just collapse. And obviously that was shown not to be true. I mean, obviously the sport has its financial challenges, but every sport does really. And so it's been great to see now that there's so many women who actually get paid a living wage to race. I think in general, like the improvements that still need to be made, it's just keep growing, keep kind of doing what they've been doing and pushing the sport further, and bringing it to more people. I think that's the kind of the steps that we need to take. I don't think there needs to be anything too dramatic that needs to be changed. It's just a case of development, and we're seeing the third tier the middle tier in the kind of team organization is coming in, and so that's been a big step as well. So yeah, it's just keep doing what they're doing and keep pushing it, and it will naturally grow and people will become interested in it.
What we also see as a part of the improvement women's cycling has made, there came a lot of big races onto the calendar, like the Tour de France. But we see now that traditional women's races like the Tour of Scandinavia are disappearing. Do you think in the future there will still be a space for these events?
I think so. I hope so. It is hard to be a standalone organizer. I think whether you're organizing women's races or men's races, if you've only got one or two races in your portfolio, as it were, trying to get the money to put these races on is hard. When you're a big organizer like ASO or the Giro RCS, there we go. Whether you're ASO or RCS, like they obviously have a lot more finances to put on these big races. And the smaller races, it's always going to be a bit of a struggle. I think, we've got to be mindful in how we organize races. I say we is like the royal we, like we don't kind of lose sight of these races, and we need to give them the space to breathe. But yeah, unfortunately, the external financial world as well is a tricky place at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we see in the Netherlands and in Sweden, where the Tour of Scandinavia was hoping to go through, the cost of getting the police in is becoming so much more than it used to be. And so, the actual cost of putting the race on is becoming a lot harder. And it's difficult to see how perhaps we as a cycling community can help that. But I think, we've just got to keep them in mind and support them kind of as we can. And but it's a tricky landscape at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then maybe another calendar question. So we can agree that the race calendar has grown a lot, but what do you think of the structure, like the distribution of the races maybe isn't very good at the moment?
No, I think I think it's a bit messy at the moment. It could be designed, I think, significantly better. The problem is, races have been, there's races that have had their date in the calendar for, years and years and years. And it's very difficult to persuade an organizer that they have to move their race because actually maybe it would be better if it was in another place and a different race was in that part. But I think that's a challenge for organizers as a whole, the UCI, and maybe teams that, I think the calendar could definitely be a lot better, a lot more streamlined. We do have a few more stage races in the beginning of the year now, but really, we are still missing that in the first part of the year. It's very one-day race focused, which, I mean, I love the one-day races, don't get me wrong, but it feels like the season is a little bit lopsided, and I'm not a huge fan of the Giro where it is. I think from a publicity point of view, I think it could work far better a little bit earlier in the calendar. But again, then you have to shuffle around other races because you've got, Ride London, the Tour of Britain,
Vuelta,
and Tour de Suisse. Yeah, Vuelta. But that's also from. I actually love the women's Vuelta where it is. I actually think that's a great place to have it. I think it's way better than it was at the end of the season. So it needs a few people to sit down and kind of map it out. But then you've also got to convince organizers that maybe their race would be in a better place if it was somewhere else, because maybe it doesn't actually work on that weekend because of that's the only spot in the calendar because that city has other events. And so it's a complicated thing, but I think that the calendar could definitely work a lot better and be a lot more streamlined.
Let's hope we can be the royal we again. The organizers can sit together and come to a compromise, because that's not our best thing worldwide, sitting together, talk to each other and come to a compromise. So let's hope cycling world can do it. And I don't know if it's possible. And I think we should fill the gap after the Tour de France Femmes as well. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you have Tour de Romandie. And that's a bunch of 0.1 races, but with all due respect, even in Flanders, we're like, Egmont Classic, whatever, what is this? So it's almost flat dead after the Tour de France. So if you could maybe shuffle the Giro towards the end of August, I don't know, it's just a suggestion.
I think there's a lot of possible permutations for the calendar. I don't think there's one perfect calendar. But it definitely does. The season definitely does just tail off in the last kind of couple of months, compared to the men's race where they've got still got some really big races. They've got Lombardia is still a big finale to the season. We don't really have that in the women's calendar.
And it will improve your product as well, because now, especially with the Conti and the Pro Conti riders who don't have teams with a lot of riders, they're completely riding on fumes. They're just picking in because they have an injury. So you just follow up Itzulia with Navarra Classic, with La Vuelta, and you just build. Yeah, it's not improving your product, I think, all those races on such a short time, I think, for the riders either. So if you spread it out a little bit more, guys, maybe you will improve the product as well. Just my 2 cents.
Kristof mentioned it, just there's still quite a big gap between continental and world tour teams. Now they are trying to improve this by also having those pro continental teams. But it is something, this gap, we heard a couple of times now from different guests here, that it's a big issue. What do you think? What steps could be made to maybe make that gap a bit smaller?
I think the introduction of the pro continental level, I think, should go a long way to helping that. And it's going to take some time to develop, like we did see with the introduction of the World Tour, you've got to go start off small and build it up rather than kind of going in hard and introducing like 20 pro-continental teams. I think that will go a long way to helping more teams maybe get a bit more finances, because you can put a name to like pro-continental. There's still a status to that, or pro team now, I think it's called. But yeah, they keep changing what they're all called, and it's hard to keep track. But I think that's the next kind of big step, because once you're in the pro-continental level, you're kind of guaranteed a certain level of racing, and that means sponsors are guaranteed a certain level of exposure. But I also think, though, that the other side of the coin is that we're still kind of growing women's cycling, and so compared to the men's side, the money is still quite small, and unfortunately the small amount of money that we've got is quite focused around the world tour, and I think it's going to take a bit of time for that to filter through. Women's cycling is still growing, and there's still a lot to kind of come together, and there's going to be these growing pains, unfortunately, in trying to bring it to the place that it deserves and should be.
Definitely. And then from a PR and media perspective, Saif, is there any improvement possible still in women's cycling? I mean, you see it today, like the visuals, Twitter, X, I'm sorry, or whatever it's called these days, Blue Sky, and all the alternatives. You see teams more and more with the visuals, with the graphics, with the coverage. It's improving a lot. So what do you think? Are there things that can be improved, will improve? Do the teams, the organizers of the races, the mainstream media, and even the UCI, are they doing enough to promote the sport, you think?
I would say, in a blanket way, no. I think there's a lot more that can be done. In terms of the teams, like, we have a big focus on making sure that our men's and women's team get the same treatment in terms of the media that we do. And we've got an amazing sponsor in Liv for our women's team, is hugely focused around promoting women and cycling. And I think that there are some great teams out there that do, like, you don't notice the difference between what they do with their men and women's teams. But I think there are some teams in the peloton that could probably do more to kind of bring it together. I'm not a huge fan of the separate social media accounts for the men's and women's team. I think it's great to bring it together because, we are one team. Yes, they've got different names, but we're under one umbrella of Green Edge Cycling, and we see ourselves as a collective. In terms of kind of the media, I think there's a lot of traditional media that still don't really do much of anything about women's sports, let alone women's cycling. So I think there's still a lot of barriers to be broken down in terms of getting people that believe and understand that women's sport, women's cycling deserve the same coverage as the men do. And then in terms of like broadcasters as well, we still get like minimal like coverage at some races of the actual racing action. There's still some races where we only get like the last 40k, and then the men get like 150k, or in some instances, like, I think I've seen even less. And so there's still like a big balance to be had. And I understand that obviously there's a growth in the audience that still needs to be had, that some broadcasters want to see before they invest more money. But at the same time, sometimes you've got to make the investment to bring the reward rather than waiting for the reward before you put in the investment. And I think we saw maybe some actions like that when Tour of Flanders, they switched up how they broadcast and how they organise their race schedule. And so now they have the men's race first and the women's race second. And I think that is a great platform for women's racing. And maybe not all organisers can do it like that, but I think there's better ways of increasing the exposure that the women's race gets on the television. And then the UCI are doing a great job in that they've got this, they've got the UCI Women's World Tour Twitter feed, and they do a lot to try and push the women's content. I think, there could definitely be more, but I don't think they do so much in terms of the kind of publicity side of it. Perhaps the changes they could make would be within the regulations of increasing the minimum broadcast time. Because at the moment, I think it's still 45 minutes, which it has been since it was introduced back in 2020, I think. So that it hasn't changed. It's always been 45 minutes, or perhaps they could just increase it to even like an hour, so that we get a bit more, or reduce the amount of kind of start and finish shots, then maybe make a minimum amount of racing shots, because that 45 minutes, I believe, also includes like start and finish footage. And it's the most painful thing when you're like, brilliant, it's starting, and then you've got like 10 minutes of riders signing on, and it's like, nobody wants to watch riders signing on the television. Like, it's great when you go there because you can see it with your own eyes in person, but when you're watching on the television, it doesn't add anything to anyone.
And then you see it on top of the screen, 40 kilometers to go, and then like, yes, but I'm not interested in riders signing up. The race already started. I can see that in the corner of my
or the
television.
mistake that Sporza always makes, like Omloop is like one of the best examples, I think. You have the man finish, and then they start their review of the race, and you have maybe a live stream somewhere, and you're watching, and like they like take 30 minutes to talk about the men's race, and meanwhile it's just a couple of kilometers left. So yeah, indeed.
Yeah, the Italians are world champion in using this bare minimum rule of broadcasting, I think. Oh my god.
Yeah, the Giro d'Italia, the older Giro d'Italia organizer was a big. They did that a lot, and you'd tune in, and it'd be like 15 minutes, and you'd end up getting like 15 minutes of racing.
Yeah, exactly. Like first podium with the sponsor, the different jersey sponsors, yada 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 yada, and then it's like, oh right, yeah, we have the last 5K to broadcast live. Yes, it says 45 minutes. I mean, that's the rule. Don't blame us. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's quite painful at times. Yeah, I think up in the amount of coverage that you should get as a minimum for World Tour races, I think would be nice to see.
Yeah, and adapt your headlines too on the online media. I remember a Sporza quote from the Canadian rider who won a stage in the Tour de France Femmes or in the Giro. I'm not sure. And they wrote like, Canadian lawyer wins stage in the Giro. I was like, are we gonna write Danish ex-fisherman is winning the Tour de France or something? Like, do you even realize how stupid this sounds actually?
Yeah.
So just give respect where respect is due, you know? I mean, just it's small things. That's maybe a rant from me today.
The cycling tourists talking about Serratovit or the girlfriend of Pogacar are also some examples that I'd rather not see. But
good thing Pogacar
so much to be said about
this.
Be careful about the language that people use, and just giving them, like you say, the respect that they deserve.
Yeah. A good thing Pogacar tackled it as well, as he describes himself as Urska Zigur's boyfriend, who happens to ride a bicycle as well.
then maybe back to the team for a little bit. What are the big goals for Liv Alula Jayco this season?
So obviously the 3 Grand Tours that we've got, although I guess there's a debate as to whether we call them Grand Tours or whether they deserve their own name for women's cycling. But maybe that's a topic for a different day. But yeah, so the Vuelta, the Giro, and the Tour, obviously big focuses. We've got some kind of fantastic climbers within the team. You know, Maddie Garcia, Ella Wiley, Silke Smulders has had an amazing start to the season, and we've got Monica Trinker-Colonel as well, who's just joined the team. Caroline Anderson as well. So we've got some, and Josie Talbot, who's also joined the team this year. So we've got some kind of fantastic climbers, and then there's the classics and the one-day races are another kind of big goal. With Letizia Paternoster, we've got Georgia Baker as well, who's come on. So we're kind of quite excited to see how they're going to go this year, because they both took like a step forward last year. Particularly Letizia, she had a fantastic sort of end to the season. So it'll be interesting to see how she does.
Yeah. I think Monica Trinca-Colonel is a nice addition to the team.
Yeah, I think we're all excited to see how she goes. She's kind of relatively untested. We don't know how good she will be. So it's just, we've just got to kind of wait and see how it goes. But I think, everybody's excited to see what she can do.
Yeah, what she already did last season, and then now in the World Tour structure. I'm very curious what steps she will make this season. That's nice. Definitely. And then from a rather personal point of view, Saif, as a woman working in a male-dominated sport, as cycling still is today, even on the women's level, actually. Have you ever encountered any barriers or challenges, like for getting the job, for doing your job as a writer, as a journalist, or now as a press officer? Do you experience?
I think in terms of barriers, I've been very fortunate that I've never really faced any. I've kind of worked with people who are, they're quite progressive in that way. They never kind of saw like a difference between having a female journalist or a male journalist. Like, we're all the same. You know, it's about how good you are. But I know that like other people have had those issues, and obviously working in the press room for a very long time, I'm very regularly the only woman in the room. I even only like 2 years ago had a male journalist actually point that out to me, because to a certain extent I sort of just stopped seeing it because I was so used to it. But there's a lot that kind of still needs to be done in terms of bringing more women into the press room. One of the great things that we saw at the Tour de France Femme when we did it the first year was how equal the press room was. Like, it was, I would say, close to 50-50 between male journalists and female journalists compared to any other time of the year. And I'd just like to see more kind of companies actually sending female journalists out for all of the races and not just, the high profile women's races. I've had a few kind of moments where I think they call it like everyday sexism. So like, people think that I'm a fan rather than a journalist initially. They're fine once they realize that I am, but it's that first initial impression. They think that I'm a fan. I'm like, no, I'm here to work. And I remember at one race, I got mistaken for the catering. I was like, no, because they only discovered that because they asked me a question in Flemish, and I was like, sorry, I don't understand. He was like, oh, I thought you worked here. And I was like, no. And then I looked up and I realized, I was the only woman in the room. So I've never had anything like blatant, or like I've never had those like barriers in front of me. I know other people have. I've been quite fortunate, I think, in that respect. Yeah, but I have had these like small instances where it kind of just makes you okay.
It's more like confirmation bias, like a whole room full of men journalists, and like, yeah, spot the odd one out. She's doing the catering, possibly. It's more like that, yeah. That's acceptable, I think. I mean, not fun, but you can understand where it comes from. It's not like, yeah. And after they realize who you were, there's just like never any issue with that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That's a
and
good
I've
thing.
been Sorry.
And then how well are you looking forward to the Tour de France, Saif? Because like as a press officer, it's
yeah,
24/7, and for a male
yes,
and a female team, the men's and women's team.
yeah, it's pretty full gas. I did so I've done 8 men's Tour de France as a journalist, and I did 1 women's Tour de France as a journalist, and then I did my I did 2 women's Tour de France as a journalist. I did my first women's Tour de France with the team last year, and it's like no other race. Like, it's so intense. Yeah, like I don't think I've felt as tired at any point during last season as I did at the end of last year's Tour de France Femme. Like, I was shattered.
Madness, yeah. I covered it one season for Team Cooper Repsol, but not even quite on the level you covered it, because I'm a complete amateur and I was doing some stuff for them. And I already thought like, oh, what is this? You're like spot on in the moment of attention now, and you post it now because in 1 hour it's too late actually. So I was like, oh my God, seriously, what is this? And I can imagine like your role is like way more expanded than mine was. So I was like,
Yeah,
oh, I have to.
It's so intense. Like, and I think that's why it was so important that we got a women's Tour de France, because that name, that brand is like pulls people in like nothing else. Like the men's race as well, there is nothing else on the calendar like it. Like, it's so intense. And like I would say the intensity of the women's Tour de France is, I would say, even bigger than perhaps the men's Giro and stuff like that. But maybe some of the elements are a bit bigger in the organization, but like the attention that race gets it's like nothing else.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I never cursed or shouted to a photographer, but during the Tour de France, I was like, dude, I need the pictures like within an hour. He was like, are you crazy? I said like, no, I'm not crazy, but I need them within an hour, or I'm not relevant anymore for a small Conti team that's participating in the Tour de France.
Yeah.
He was like, come on. I was thinking, no, seriously, I'm not kidding. We are not SD Works. We don't have prime time. We should use it when we get it. So yeah, that was quite the experience.
So now we talked a bit about your story and a bit of your global opinions. Maybe now it's time to talk a bit about the latest news in women's cycling. There were a lot of races going on this week. But maybe we will start with Kristoff's favorite topic, as the works team presentation.
My favorite team.
I watched it. It was quite interesting. Some interesting quotes, but I'll save the best for the last. So mainly the biggest, maybe I'll just like, it was quite a good team presentation. The only thing which was a bit sad is they let Marta Lav start, who was very nervous, so that was a bit sad. But okay, the rest was pretty good. Only that the surprise they had for Lotte wasn't really a surprise because she already knew about her getting a new bike. But it was a nice presentation. Like we got to know like a couple of the different riders. What was pretty obvious and in some things maybe a little bit concerning is the new 7 riders, apart from Marta Lack, they are really focused on learning and riding the smaller races. We also have Gerke Struijs, who will still be focusing on gravel and just occasionally ride on the road, which puts a lot of pressure to their best riders actually, because like if in the women's team there are like 7 riders who aren't riding the most of the biggest races, you're gonna ask a lot from those riders. So that was maybe remarkable.
Yeah,
And for the
now
rest,
now they can dominate the point 1 and 2 races as well. Woohoo! Let's do this. Oh.
And then like the 2 main big things were the Anne van der Breggen comeback and Lotte Kopecky's program, a different approach from other years. So she will more like pick her goals and won't ride too much races. I think that's a great decision because if you can remember and you watched it, her interview with Sporza after the Omnium at the Olympics, she seemed just so tired and just full of emotion because she finally knew, okay, now I can just relax. I don't have to be there all the time. She did a lot of races and always competing for the win. The pressure also from Belgian media is just so much. Like it's like if they give the attention to women's cycling, it's only Lotte has to win and Lotte will win, and it's normal that she does it. So I think it's a great choice that she won't be riding as much this season, but more like choosing her goals. So she starts in Milano Sanremo, so she skips Omloop, Strade, and Trofeo Binda. And then she does like the big races, and maybe that's to be confirmed to Dwars door Vlaanderen and Flèche Wallonne. And then of course she will be peaking for the Tour de France Femme. So
She will have a great domestique apparently.
Yeah, I was shocked about that too. Anne van der Breggen said a few things which made me think like, oof, are we sure? But she said she was happy to go with Lotte to the Tour de France as a domestic to help her win. I would say I'd like to see it first before I judge, but if she volunteers to do that, I'm happy about it.
Get your popcorn ready for the Tour de France, fam. Might be interesting.
So that's pretty exciting. Then about Van der Breggen, also there the main thing is that she's not at the level, or she didn't really say that, but I think the team, probably Danny Stams, said that she isn't on the level from before. He said a few other things, like he doesn't really get how you take the pressure away from your riders. But so she's mainly going for the Ardennes. I could understand if she's on a good level. And she's riding the 3 Grand Tours. So that's interesting. And then my favorite moment was the quote of Anne van der Breggen. It was Hannah Walker doing the presentation, and she asked her like a question like, maybe this can help you being in the car as a DS for a couple of years, seeing the race from a different perspective. And she probably didn't mean it like that, but she basically said like, yeah, it was very good to be in the car and see the back of the race, because I never seen that in my career. So that was a bit Yeah, not the best thing to say, but it was funny. It was entertaining.
Could have phrased it a little bit differently.
So that was that. Then I think we had cyclocross, but we'll save that for last since we also need to do a little preview on the Worlds this weekend. So maybe we'll start with the Spanish races. So the Challenge Mallorca. It started with the Trofeo Marazzi Filan. So I think I expected it a little harder because I'm doing this thing on Blue Sky now, Tour d'Ambiance, where you have to like make a selection for every race. This wasn't in the classification, but it's a women's race, so I cannot not participate. So I maybe thought it was gonna be a little heavier, but
the first one was for the sprinters, Saar. That was
the main
definitely...
takeaway was an amazing lead out by EF and pretty dominant win by Hantala. So that was impressive.
Yeah. Woohoo, go Scandinavians. Good job, Lotta. She beat Chiara Consoni. Well, it's early in the season, of course, and I guess Chiara is not really 100% in form already. But who is actually? So a win is a win, I think.
It's nice to see her.
That one coming.
Yeah. It's nice to see her at the front of a race like that again after the break that she had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
I didn't see that coming because I didn't select her.
No one, I think. It's no pancake she beat. It's just Consoni, Coles Lister, Linda Zanetti, Mickey Drummond, Sophie van Rooyen. I mean,
super impressive.
Nice win.
And then the Trofeo Palma Femenina was probably my favorite because we saw Marlon Reusser is back, but like really back. She won after long COVID, a chronic illness, which is pretty impressive, certainly from my point of view as someone with a chronic illness. I gotta say, I was very emotional to like just see like, you know, in some cases it is possible, and she just came right back in on the highest level. So I was super happy and satisfied for her. And Mavi Garcia also did a great job, but sadly doing what she does the most, riding super well and then losing it in the sprint. So yeah, but very exciting race.
Yeah, it was. It's good to see Marlon Reusser really back after all her struggles mentally, physically. That and it's nice that that's not in an SD Works jersey, so it's less frustrating to see her win. So that's a good thing. No, it was really strong, and I think she earned she gained a lot of confidence with that. I think.
I don't know where I read it, but I read it somewhere. She talked about SD Works. She said like she's happy she's in a new environment. She said she can't really put a name on it. The main thing for her that was not working for her is like needing to fight for your place and for the leader role in SD Works. So she's happy she can be a sole leader now. And she also the vibes weren't it so very abstract, but she said that in an interview too. And then also we saw for something for the next day, Talita Lyon was also very good with the 4th place. And
a prelude to the third Mallorca challenge then actually. The Trofeo Binisalem.
But the only difference maybe was in like riders doing well. The second day and the third day was Kerbaol. In the second, so in the Trofeo Palma Femenina, she wasn't been seen anywhere. She was nowhere.
No.
But the day after, the day after she became third, and very dominant win again from Talita de Jong.
Yeah, Talita de Jong was having none of it actually. She was like, this is mine. It reminded me of Noemi Ruech in the Tour Down Under. She had the same grin on her face. It's like, no, this is mine. That was for
Yeah.
sure. And, nice drive from Carmel, but I think she went too soon actually too, because she was riding very hard, and then the last 2K I think was quite steep, and then she started very early, and then she flamed out and she finished on fumes because even Persico could roll her in for the second place. So, but
Yeah.
a nice win for Talita de Jong, human powered health. Got a nice transfer there. That,
Indeed. Then we also had 2 Australian races. I haven't seen it. It was a sprint boat races, I think. So the Schwalbe Women's Classic, we predicted it, and I think we didn't get one name right.
For sure not. I had Clara
Uh,
Copponi on 5. Come on, I even mentioned a name. This is okay.
I don't know what did I choose. I said Barbieri first.
Oh yeah, that's a close one too.
Didn't I say Bertizzolo 5th, or am I just making that up?
I don't know. Let's just say that you're just making this up, actually. No, I don't
I'm
remember.
not sure. Maybe I did predict something right, but yeah, I'm
I
not
predicted
sure.
Josie Nelson, but it was apparently obvious that they took the Barbieri card for the Schwalbe Classic. But anyway,
And,
Copponi with
and then I
the
said Sarah Van Dam, but she got in a car accident and
yeah.
broke her collarbone, I think. So
Yeah, too sad for
yeah.
Sarah Van Dam. But it was a nice sprint by Clara Copponi. I mean, we couldn't see a lot, but she was a boss. Even after the finish, the celebration was bossy as well. Just, yeah, she was like, "Nee, this is mine." That was a great win.
It was like she it was like a thing she discussed with her mechanic. I think if I win this, I'll do this. I think I read that somewhere.
It's like Alice
and
winning the
also-
Surf Coast Classic. They had a thing within the team as well, but I don't know if we can repeat it on the podcast actually.
But maybe first about Ali Wollaston. She became 7th in the Schwalbe Women's Classics, but she was I don't know, was it a mechanic or a crash or both? But she was on her own about like the half of the race. She was on her own trying to get back to the peloton. So I think that's very impressive if you can still become 7th there.
Yeah. And then the next one, the Surf Coast Classic, she wins. Before Chloe Dijkert, who is already in top form, it seems, when you see her paddling through the peloton there in Australia. I mean, come on, girl. This is like, we're still January. Relax a bit. So,
and 2 times also Georgia Baker on the podium.
Yeah.
Very consistent.
She's made a big step forward this since last year again, I think. It was great to see her on the podium twice.
Yeah, for sure. Then we have like a short thing about the second part of the Mountain Track Championships. The first part was at the end of December. There were 2 world records, both in young disciplines, but Helene Hesters on the individual pursuit. There it went from 3 kilometers to 4 kilometers, but she
finally, by the way.
Yeah, indeed.
Jesus! Like women can only do a pursuit for 3Ks. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
This was long overdue.
And,
anyway, continue,
so she was 0.5 seconds faster than Boras on the French National Championships. And then the day after, another world record from Marit van Hoger riding for AGA Insurance Sudal U23. It was on the 1 kilometer ITT, so it also went from
kilo,
500
the
meters.
kilo in track cycling.
Yeah.
The kilo.
But I couldn't really find anything if she was really like the first one if this was the first time it was written, or she did beat someone, because with Helene there was in the article like she beat it with this amount, but Marit van Hove, I couldn't really find something. Again, the disaster it is to find results from the Belgian track championships. I was like, Valerie Genaar, amazing rider, and even a more amazing person. She became Belgian champion in the sprint. Okay, Niki de Grandel and Julie Nicolas weren't riding, but a win is a win. So I was like, I was like trying to follow it a bit for the results, but like if you want to find something, first you have like the 2 hours after the event, like it's just like the document you have to open, no info. I was like, okay. So then I checked, and then you have to go through a 48-page long document to find the results. So a bit work on that, I think. But overall, like a pretty good preparation for the European Track Championships, also in Heusden-Zolder in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks,
yeah, definitely. Hey, and try to track some track cycling info when you're a youth coach and looking for some youth results. I mean, it's sheer impossible.
But like,
oh my gosh.
I just don't get it. Like, Belgian cycling is not like a small organization. I think they should be able to do something better than like just put a document a few hours after on there.
It's available for every road race on every youth level, so it's well done. It's well documented, except for track cycling. It's a drama. Even cyclocross, all youth categories, you find all the results. It's very nice. But track cycling, nah.
And then we also had some cyclocross this weekend. I watched Maas Mechelen, and I kind of watched Hoogrijden. Not in the most legal way, but hey, I saw a bit of it. So Blanca Vos won in Maas Mechelen. Super impressive.
Yeah, Bakstedt too. Yeah, nice.
Bakstedt was second, Browns third. And then like basically all the Dutchies still place 9 with Schreiber. So very impressive by Blanca Vos. Like she was leading in the beginning of the race, then got caught, and then got away again. So super strong race. Also is nice if a non-Dutchie succeeds to win a big cyclocross. So I was pretty happy about that. But the main thing here is, I think, the second of the cyclocross World Cup isn't riding at the elites. So we Bakstedt will compete with the U23 again, which maybe wasn't the right decision if you see that you're fighting for the podium in certain races, and
at least we can already pencil in the U23 world champion.
Shame we're not predicting that.
No. Not a lot of money to win, actually, when you put your money on Zoe Bakstedt either, I think. So. Strange decision.
So that's maybe a strange choice, I would say. And then Hoogrijden Brons won pretty dominant, I think. And Vos second again. She's like doing great. And then Pieterse on 3. Van Empel didn't have her best weekend with a 6th and a 4th place. It's not, like, of course it's not bad, but it's maybe not what you would expect from Van Empel the weekend before the Worlds.
Yeah, they say Hoogrijden is the dress rehearsal for the World Championship, but I remember Mathieu van der Poel finishing 22nd or something one year in Hoogrijden, and then the next week he just dominated the World Champ, so... I don't know. It's Is it an indication, really sad? I mean, maybe the form of Blanca Vos, probably, but the rest are just the usual suspects we have in the top 10, mostly. So what we already knew, I think Alvarado was in peak form in the beginning of the cyclocross season. I think she's almost running on fumes now the last couple of weeks. Puck is back, but is Puck 100% in form? We're not sure yet. Lucinda Brandt will be there, especially when it's muddy. So keep an eye on her. But for the rest,
yeah, let's just hope it's an exciting battle, and also hope there isn't too much bad luck, because I just read before starting the podcast that there were quite some parts of the parkour with very sharp stones. So let's hope that doesn't that there is just not too much bad luck.
Yeah, definitely.
And then maybe we will do our prediction first. Maybe our guest can start with who she thinks she will win this Saturday.
Yeah, I have to say I haven't been able to watch too much cross over the winter because it's been full gas working on the roadside of stuff. But Lucinda Brandt's had a great season so far, so it's a very unimaginative guess, but I'm going to guess Lucinda.
Might be the parkour for Lucinda. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a good pick, Saif. It's yeah.
Maybe I'll go now. So I went with a favorite, but maybe the least obvious one. I went with Blanca Vaz. I don't know how long ago there has been like a women's cyclocross champion not being a Dutchie, probably from Sonnekant.
Yeah, probably. Most likely.
So that would be huge. Then I went with Alvarado on 5, and the week-long promised hard pick Sonnekant on 10. I could just not do it. So yeah. Kristof, maybe your predictions?
Sure, dear listeners, Sarah's falling into the Blanca Vaz trap of 2 good races and expecting her to become world champ. No, I think this one is Fem van Empels to lose. It's a great season again for Fem, despite what the media might cover or might say or what opinion they might have. She's strong, she's dominant, not as dominant as last season, but yeah, not every season is a big Grand Cru, of course. So I think it's Fem's to lose on 1, then Alvarado on 5. And on 10, I go for a Frenchie, Amandine Fouquenet. Just as her home race, she will be very motivated. So I'll just pick the odd one at number 10.
So I'm also going this weekend. It started like it started different. First I was like, so it's Sonnekant's last season, which is kind of big and sad too. And it was like cyclocross was just something this winter I was like, oof, I'm not too enthusiastic about it, but I'll go. And when I went, I was actually so surprised by the support Sonnekant got at some races. Like, I have never heard or seen the support for Sonnekant being so big. It's like the first year people are like realizing, well, she's really like a big cyclist and she has done so much for this sport. So we have to give her an appropriate goodbye or something. So that's nice. So my first thought was like, okay, I can't miss her last race. I have to go to Osnabrück. So that's in about 3 weeks, something like that. So that was planned. And then I was thinking like, Liv is also not that far. Like maybe I also need to go to Sanne's last Worlds. So it started like that. I booked an Airbnb and then I saw something coming across about winning tickets for the men's race, which is quite a big difference because those tickets you could win were also for the Virage Belge, which means it's like if you want to do that, like 45 euros for one day. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll enter and we'll see. So I won 4 tickets for that, which makes it a whole lot cheaper. So I'm looking forward I'm excited to see. The thing that's maybe, I don't know, what was clear for me in the selections again from Belgian cycling, we heard it in like a press release or like an interview with Haaland, that this year they are really focusing on results, and that World Championships and European Championships aren't just there to learn, also not for juniors or U23, but to perform. So I think you can feel that in the smaller selection than you would maybe normally see from the women's side. So
Yeah,
that was
but
a bit.
who's gonna put up a result? I mean, you have Sanne Kant and Norbert Ribeiro, but for the rest,
Yeah, only Julie Brouwers, Marion Norbert Ribeiro and Sanne Kant are doing the elite. And then you have Xaide van Sinai doing the U23.
Chanel de Schoes
I think
as
there
well.
was... no, it was Sterre Vervloed.
Okay, yeah.
And then you have 3 juniors racing too. But they are participating in the mixed relay. So
Yay.
I don't know how we feel about that, but I think that is something.
When is it?
On Friday, but it's I don't think it's televised. So I do like watching it, but and since if there's no live stream, I don't really see the point of doing it. But they are going with a decent team actually this year. From the elite side, they have Sanne Kant and Toon Aert. And then U23, Xaide van Sinai and Jente Michels. The juniors, no, I forgot the juniors, but I think medal should be certain there.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then there's one extra thing maybe we should mention. We saw Demi Vollering speaking up about mental health, anxiety, pressure, and then mainly focused on the stage in the Tour de France last year, where she won, but also at the same time lost the Tour de France with 4 seconds. She talked about how physically, of course, she was in a lot of pain, but mentally she was just empty. She almost couldn't function anymore. She talked about how Misha Bredel tried to get her through that stage, and also what the impact can be from your menstruation, the hormones who make you extra emotional. So I think that was a very powerful thing to do and a good use of her platform to do that. So I would say respect for Demi Vollering here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we've seen a few more riders speak out in the last few years. Mara Reuser spoke out during the World Championships in Glasgow 2 years ago. And then a few more riders did it off the back of that. And I think, sometimes it's good to remind fans that riders aren't robots. Even the best of the best are still just human beings with real human emotions and real human feelings. Indeed. And, they deserve to be treated like that.
Yeah, that's so important to realize for fans, but for sure for the media. Like, I mean, if you become 5th in the Tour of Flanders, that you're the 5th of the world in your thing, and you don't need to start like, oh yeah, she trains herself, she messed up, she doesn't. That's just, don't do it. Like they all try so hard to be at their top level, and they will do everything for it, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. You can try as much as you want, but sometimes it won't work out. And I think that's just so important to realize for everyone, not only in cycling, but like just realize that other people maybe do their best and maybe it won't work out all the time, but just be a little kinder to each other. So
riders just peak to different races, and that's what the media completely has no understanding of. Like they were like, she failed the Tour of Flanders, but she was so good in Omloop het Nieuwsblad. Yes, but you cannot be peaking both of those races. I mean, that's like training technically very difficult unless you're like Lotte Kopecky or Demi Vollering or types like that. They can cover that. But normal human beings, normal athletes, it's impossible. And it's to say, oh no, she sucked in the Tour of Flanders. No, and she was so good in the Omloop. It's like, Of course, that's a whole different story of Demi, because obviously Demi peaked to the Tour de France Femme. At least I hope so. But it's opening up that she cracked on Alpe d'Huez mentally. Well, cracked is maybe a little exaggeration, but that was stuff going on in her mind during that climb, like that everything came together emotionally, and that she said like, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm cracking. Yeah.
But you shouldn't underestimate how hard it is to like open up and like show you're vulnerable too. For sure, if you feel like a lot of people are looking up to me, I'm their example or something. So I think it took a lot of courage, but I think it was an amazing decision to do that.
Definitely.
So I think we've covered everything from the last week now. For now, next week we will just have an episode just with the two of us, and then starting then we have 3 guest episodes in a row. So that's exciting. But maybe before we completely wrap up, Sadhbh, what can we wish you for 2025 or even broader the future?
Hopefully just another fun-packed season. I think every new women's cycling season, I think, is going to be the best yet. And I believe it this year as well. I think every year is better than the next. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it and hopefully being a part of some of it.
Yeah.
We hope so too, Sadhbh. I mean, keep doing what you do. You're living your dream, even though it's not every day a dream, of course. But that's the downside of a job, of course. But keep doing what you do, Sadhbh. And thank you very much for your insights. Thank you very much for your appearance on the podcast. It was very insightful to see the women's cycling from another perspective, actually. So thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And best of luck with the team this year. We'll keep an eye on you.
Hopefully, I won't be getting in front of too many cameras. I'll be making the riders do that instead.
Yes.
That's a wrap for episode 13 of She Rides. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the rides.
Absolutely. And women's cycling is packed with action, and we're here to bring you every twist and turn.
Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Amazon Music or YouTube so you don't miss upcoming episodes. And if you like today's show, a rating, like or comment really helps us reach more listeners.
And follow us on Blue Sky and Instagram for behind-the-scenes updates, our Guess the Guest game, and more.
Thanks to Sadhbh for joining us today, and don't hesitate to share your questions or topics you'd like us to cover.
Stay tuned for more exciting guests and join our prediction competition. Tag She Rides Podcast on Blue Sky to show off your knowledge. And don't forget, She Rides is powered by KDM Endurance Coaching.
Thanks for listening to She Rides, where women's cycling takes the lead. Keep watching the fun, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.